Hello, welcome to my video. If you're from my Instagram, I love you, and if you're not from my Instagram, I love you all the same. So I have a couple of things here today, and they're here for a first impressions / review, but mostly I'm going to be focusing on Natasha Denona eyeshadows, and I'm going to be trying them on for the first time ever today, and then I'm really going to let you know whether or not they're actually worth the money. So now that you know why we're here, let's get right into the video. Okay, so as you can see, most of my base is already on. I don't have on blush or bronzer though, but I'm gonna focus on that later. Right now, I'm just applying my eyeshadow base, and I'm using the same one as I always do. It's the Peely's eyeshadow base, and I'm applying it all over to give the eyeshadows a really honestly fair shot today. So while I am applying it literally everywhere, I'm gonna try to apply a thin layer of it on so that my lid doesn't crease that much. Okay, so I'm using the Natasha Denona Zendo, I believe is how you pronounce it, eyeshadow palette today. And like I said, this is my first palette by them ever. And right now I'm using the shade Balance, and I'm running it all throughout my crease with a small, detailed, fluffy blending brush. This is the Sigma E36, I believe. Honestly, not me using this brush probably every single day of my life and not being sure as to what it's called. That's really kind of embarrassing, but I have goldfish brain, so don't mind me. I'm also gonna apply the same shade to the very outer corner of my eyes. So as far as I can tell right now in this moment, the shade is pretty pigmented and it blends out fairly nicely. There's little to no fallout in the pan, but this is only the first shade, so let's not say too much right away, you know? Okay, so I've cleaned off that same brush now, and I'm using the shade Calm and the 50/50 blending technique to blend that out a little bit more if it's possible. I'm not sure if this shade is light enough to blend the previous shade out, but I guess it's a journey and we're gonna find out together, okay? By the way, if you're wondering what type of eye look I'm going for today, so am I. No, I'm just kidding. Well, kind of, sort of. I know that I'm doing a nude, sort of soft glam eye, but I'm not really sure where it's gonna go, so we'll see together. Okay, so one thing to note, these shades are playing together really well. They're blending out really nicely. I have no trouble with that, so it's okay so far. My thing with this brand though is that I've never bought a palette by them, just because even though I've heard that the formulation is superb from a lot of sources, I've never been able to justify purchasing this palette because it costs so much money. And it's not that I don't wanna pay that much for a palette, because if it really is as good as everyone says, I have no trouble paying that much money if I know the quality that I'm getting. But I've just never been able to justify it because I mostly use Be Perfect Cosmetics eyeshadows, and I really like their formula, and they happen to be really affordable. So pretty much those are my favorite eyeshadows and formulas overall in the makeup world right now. So since I found a formula that I actually really like, I never justified, you know, trying this formula out. And to be perfectly honest with you, I probably would have never tried this palette had I not gotten it as a gift. Now, not from the brand or anything like that, obviously they don't know that I exist, but I got this gift from a really, really good friend. Girl, if you're watching this, I just love you so much. But yeah, anyway, she got this for me as a gift, so I'm very excited to be able to try this now. Okay, so I'm gonna be able to make this work, but I do wish shade Calm was just a tiny bit lighter so that I could really blend this out like a dream. I'm still gonna be able to blend it out pretty well, but I just wish it was a tiny bit lighter. Although it is true to pan, don't get me wrong. Anyway, now I'm dipping back into shade Balance, which by the way would make a really great transition shade. And I'm just strengthening it a little bit. Now again, same brush, cleaned off, and I'm dipping into the darkest brown shade in this palette, which is shade Mindful, and I'm just blending it into the very outer corner of the eyes. So sort of like this. I like this, but I will say that I wish this shade were just a teeny tiny bit darker, if I'm being honest. Okay, so now I'm taking an angled brush and the shade Mindful, that's the darkest shade here, and I'm running that through my lower lash line. Stopping it around the middle of my eye though, because that's just what I normally do, but you could take it all the way in if you wanted. Now I will say for this and this shade specifically only, for now, it looks darker in the pan than it is when I apply it to my eyes. And it doesn't matter how many layers I apply, I still can't get it to look quite as dark as it does in the pan. So that's just a little ding from me right now. Now I'm buffing that out using Shade Balance. So now all that's left is the shimmers, and then I'm basically finished with the eye look and we're gonna move on. So I'm just tapping a little bit of eye base that I had left over on my brush right on my moving lid, because that's where I'm gonna place the shimmers down now. So I'm gonna use two shimmers today. First of all, I'm taking the shade Tranquil and I'm applying it to the middle of the lid. I don't know if you see how that's looking so far. Maybe let me try to apply it with my finger, even though I really don't like doing that because I got long nails and I don't like poking my eyeshadow palettes with them. But sometimes if you apply shimmers using your fingers, they look better and like more vibrant. This specific shade really doesn't right now. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. My main thing is it's sort of not shimmery enough for me personally, and it's also not as pigmented as I expected, to be very honest. The matte shades were, but this shimmer not so much. Okay, so now I'm taking my second shimmer, which is the shade Yama, and I'm applying it right over here. And this shade, I don't know how the camera is picking that up, but it's not extremely pigmented either. Like, it's there, I can see it, but that's about it. And meanwhile, I'm digging with this brush pretty hard into the palette, but okay, let me try my fingers. Okay, so see, the finger technique definitely helped with shade Yama. Didn't help with that first shade though. With that being said, I do like shade Yama a lot because it looks like a nudish brown shade, but it has like sort of gold green reflex in it, so I really like that. It's sort of duochrome, and that's cute. I like that vibe. Anyway, now I'm just gonna do the same thing to my other eye as well. Okay, again, look at that first shade. So I'm applying it directly onto a wet base, and it's really not giving me the best results I've ever seen. And by that I mean most of the shimmery shades from any other palette that I own and actually like do a better job than this. And that's not me being mean, I'm just trying to tell it like it is, you know? Now let's look at shade number 2 again. So this is it with the brush. Really, honestly, almost nothing. And this is what it looks like when I use my finger. And I'm gonna be really honest here, they're also not the most buildable shades I've ever seen or tried. Okay, so now since this eyeshadow palette doesn't have a black, I'm just taking a different black matte eyeshadow from a different palette that I own, and I'm just aligning my upper lash line just a little bit because that makes your mascara and your lashes look fuller in general. So I've been doing that a little bit recently. So I'm just gonna do that, and then I'm gonna go apply some mascara, and we'll be back to do the second portion of this video. Okay, so this is the eye look with mascara and everything. As you can see, I don't hate it. It's nice. I did have to dip into a different palette to get a lighter shade to use it as highlighter around my eyes because they didn't have a light enough shade in this palette to do so. So there's that. Anyway, now I'm just gonna apply some bronzer all over my face, and then I'm gonna test out a Patrick Ta product. I've never tried their products before either, and I have a blush palette here that I am very excited to try because if you don't know, now you know. I am obsessed and I love blush a lot. Okay, so my bronzer is on at this point, and now it's time for blush. I'm really excited. I think I'm gonna try the middle shade. It's sort of calling my name, although that bright pink is also beautiful. And first I'm going to dip into the cream blush, and I'm just gonna use my finger for this just because I really don't know how pigmented it is. So I just want to test it out a little bit first, and I'm just gonna apply it to my cheek. By the way, what I really liked about this palette and I thought was very innovative right from the jump was the addition of this little plexiglass that they have in the palette, guarding and protecting the cream blushes from the powder blushes. I thought that was just a genius and also very useful. So I love that. Okay, let me see here. This is sort of just a light layer of that cream blush, and it's the middle shade. I'll pop the name up on the screen. I don't know what it is, but I think that's very pretty for now. I am gonna apply a little bit more of the cream on though, and then I'm gonna go over it with the matching powder blush. And what I like about this cream is that it's not making my foundation or my concealer underneath move really at all, and it's also not disturbing the bronzer. So far, so good. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Now, while I do that, I have to say, are these the most pigmented blushes that I have seen or tried immediately from the jump? No, they're not, but they definitely are very buildable, and I think you could build them up to a pretty nice coverage, so that's great. You could also just sort of leave them like this and make it look like you're just naturally blushing, which is pretty cute, so I'm not mad at it. Okay, that's pretty cute. Now I'm using the matching shade in the powder form. I don't know if you can see this. I know you can see this. Aliens from space can probably see this. Look how pigmented. I mean, yes, granted, I did apply it on a wet base because that cream blush sort of did give it something to stick to, but it's still very pigmented. And you know what? I actually really love that. Let me just try and blend this out for a second right now and try and not look so crazy. Although, not me thinking that blush is my biggest problem that makes me look crazy. Girl, please. Okay, I personally kind of like this look because I like a lot of blush, but I am just gonna take my beauty blender and sort of whatever's left on it and then just blend out my cheeks a little bit. There we go. I really married everything together now. Okay, so now let me pop on some highlight on my cheeks, do my lips, and then I'll be back here for final thoughts. Okay, I'm back. So to conclude this video, I'm going to be talking about the Natasha Denona Zendo eyeshadow palette first. So personally, I liked the palette overall. The mattes were pretty good. The shimmers I wasn't that impressed with. They were not bad, but they were not good.
I ain't saying I'm the best, but I ain't the worst.
Which I think, considering the price, is just sort of unacceptable a little bit, especially since today in the makeup world there are so many palettes out there that cost a fraction of the price and are just as good quality wise, if not better. For example, some that come to mind to me right now immediately off the top of my head are the Nimya palette by Nikki Tutorials. The mattes in that palette are wonderful. They're really unique. They really impressed me, and you can watch my review of that palette right here. The shimmers are also so beautiful, so pigmented. Or any of the Be Perfect Cosmetics eyeshadow palettes. I really love their formula, and with that formula, I'm also able to create much more dramatic and bold looks like you see on my Instagram page often. I feel like I wouldn't be able to create such looks with the Zendo palette personally, because even though the mattes are pretty good, the shimmers are nothing special, and I also do only have 15 shades in this palette, so that's kind of really not a lot, again, especially considering the price. So I don't hate it, but I'm not impressed, and you know what? For this amount of money, I believe I should be. So with that being said, do I think it's worth the money? No. Would I purchase another Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette in the future? Maybe, potentially, if I really liked the color story or if it was really unique in some way, shape, or form, but it's not gonna be on my immediate need to buy list. Now, moving on to the Patrick Ta blush palette. This was the Major Headlines palette, and I really enjoyed it. I thought that the cream blush was nice, buildable, not too pigmented off the jump, which for cream blush is actually nice because it gives you time to blend it out and not panic, you know, so that's cool. I liked that. The powder blush seemed to be a little bit more pigmented, although I will say it could be because I applied it to a tacky base, so the cream blush, maybe that's why it was more pigmented, or it seemed to be more pigmented, but also it is pretty buildable and the shade is very pretty. I personally would have maybe liked the powder blush to be just a little bit more shimmery because that's the way it appeared initially in the palette. But that's honestly just a personal preference because I really like it if a blush is really shimmery. Not quite highlighter shimmery, but sort of kind of almost. And I know a lot of people don't enjoy shimmery blushes at all. So if you're somebody who's maybe looking to dip your toe into a sort of shimmery blush, but not anything dramatic, I would honestly try this palette. I'm definitely also excited to be trying the other two shades as well, and I will keep using this. To be fair, I will probably keep using the Zendo palette as well, but it's not gonna be the palette that I reach for. I am gonna use it up, but I'm not really looking forward to playing with it. That's just me being honest. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's a personal thing. Maybe I'm picky with eyeshadow formulas, which is probably the case, but that is what it is. However, this Patrick Top palette really did impress me, and I can't wait to play with it again. So with all of that being said, that is it for today's video. If you made it this far, then congratulations to you. And if you liked the video, then please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!